guys for coming out and tell you a little bit about what's going on before the council. Talk to you about a couple hot button issues that I know that many of you have heard about, and then also talk about some of the not so in the spotlight issues that I'm sure you'll be wanting to report about as well. So I'll start with the first one, which is, of course, since the last time we've taken up the zoning rewrite, and a lot of what you've seen in terms of the compromises that have come out have been really, in my eyes, very, very successful in terms of what we've been able to do as a council, making sure that we work together in framing the best way that we can move forward in developing our county, being sensitive to some of the many issues that we're talking about regarding overdevelopment in our environment, making sure that we're sensitive to transportation needs and infrastructure. And I think this represents a great balance. And by no means is this ever seen as the panacea for land use development from here on out. There are, of course, obviously going to always be ZTA changes that will come about for specific property requirements. And so we've talked to particular property owners who have a single issue and told them that some of those might be best served with a ZTA versus trying to add everything we could into the zoning rewrite. And so with that being said, I think that we have a great general agreement. There are some few little tweaks that we need to do that Jeff Zients is floating around to members, but I think that you'll see the same support that it had before during the council, with I think only Councilmember Elrich dissenting in terms of supporting that zoning rewrite. I did want to talk about Timaw Creek, which many of you saw today, and there continues to be a lot of debate and discussion about what makes sense for how we can move forward. Look, we've always committed, and the reason why we undertook this limited master plan is because we had said from the very beginning that we needed to be sensitive to the environment and understand that we could not develop without making sure that we had a plan that would protect one of our most sensitive, valuable natural resources. That was a unanimous decision by the council over a year ago. And so we committed to that then, and we remain committed to it now. So I'm not sure where a lot of the fodder has been that says that somehow the council or council members aren't concerned about the environment, because that couldn't be further from the truth. All of the council members are certainly committed to making sure that we're protecting the environment, and that's why we're undertaking this study. That's the reason why we paid the planning board the additional money to bring in a consulting firm to look at the science, to make sure that this wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction, that it was something that was soundly based on information and data, and then make a decision on how to move forward. I will say this, that keep in mind this was not to be done in a vacuum with just solely the environment. We also needed to make sure that we balanced the intent and spirit of the 1994 master plan. That was what we had tasked them, them being the planning board, with doing. And so I think that it's important for us to continue along that, or in that vein, to make sure that we can give Clarksburg something that will help complete that community while also balancing the needs of the environment. Those are the two most important charges that we have. And so hopefully we'll be able to come up with some sort of compromise that does just that, that balances the needs of both the environment and the community to make sure that we can deliver on that spirit and vision of that master plan. I did want to talk to you about a couple of initiatives that I'm working on, and so they're a little bit unique in the sense that it's never been done before. We are actually sponsoring a Washington Metropolitan Council Chairs meeting, and have reached out to a number of chairs from the Washington metropolitan area in trying to get us to come together on some of the most pressing issues for our communities. That date is still to be determined. We are working with the other members' offices at this point, but they do include both Howard, Prince George's, the District of Columbia, Alexandria, Fairfax, and Arlington. So this is very exciting. Again, something that's never been done before, but what I hope to accomplish with this meeting is put us all on the same page when it comes to working on a lot of these issues that affect all of us. Some people have said, well, what's the difference between that and COG? the reality is that each of the leaders for those particulars are not always in those representative committees. And so this will be a great opportunity for those folks who have been tasked by their committee members, by their council members, to be the leader at this point. Will allow us to maybe work together on some high-level issues that we can all combine and say that this is what we as a Washington metropolitan region truly believe is a way for us to move forward. And so I'll be working with my colleagues on a number of the issues that they'd like to bring forward to talk about at this meeting, and I'm sure that my colleagues from the other jurisdictions will as well. But I think this is a stepping stone for us, and this is a way for us to continue to build on that camaraderie that we have. Oftentimes we operate within a vacuum, and I think that one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that our conversation about expanding and working with the Board of Education, our conversation about expanding and working with our state delegation also needs to be enhanced by working with neighboring jurisdictions as well. And I think that together we can really get some great things done and potentially lobby for our state leaders as well to kind of do some things if you have all of these jurisdictions that are all together and saying and highlighting that this is a problem. Last but not least, I wanted to talk to you about our state delegation and our quest for school construction in Annapolis. And so we have had some great conversations to this point. I think that you heard from the governor before that he understands the needs that are out there when it comes to making sure that our school infrastructure is matched with the level of increased enrollment that we're seeing. And especially here in Montgomery County, we experience it the most, growing at about 2,000 students a year. And so it's imperative for us. It really is. And our message to our state delegation has always been one, help the folks that are leading the way. You know, we're leading the charge in making sure that we're innovating and being creative in how we educate our children. We've been the model nationally when it comes to the great things that are being done within our school system, and I think that accordingly we need to make sure that our school buildings and infrastructure reflect that as well. I think that it's a very different argument from what you heard from Baltimore City in terms of theirs being one where you had an aging and crumbling infrastructure, but both are equally important. You know, you need to grease all the wheels, whether the wheels are falling apart or whether they're you know, nice and rolling along. You still need to make sure that that car is moving forward, and that car is Maryland, and we certainly are one of those hubs. And so it's important for us to make sure that we can continue to be successful to that end. So with that, those are some of the major issues that we're addressing right now. Of course, I left off the one that I'm sure many of you will have a question about, but at this point I cannot comment on the District 5 candidate. We will have a vote tomorrow morning, and I'm confident that the council will move forward in putting forth the best person from those that were selected to be able to represent the interests of District 5. We had some fantastic candidates that applied, and we're very impressed by a number of them and their qualifications. Unfortunately, we can only have just one, and so you know, we'll make sure that we vote that person in the morning, and then that person will be sworn in later on that afternoon by Loretta Knight, clerk of court, and then we'll have them fill out their paperwork. But they're going to hit the ground running because there's a government operations meeting that happens the following day. So they're going to have to sit down with staff and really get ramped up very quickly, and we'll be sitting with them and making sure that we can help facilitate and make this transition as easy as possible. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. Well, essentially it's the same process that we used when we were doing the interviews in terms of identifying top choices. So it was the same model that was used. I, as the council president, wanted to make sure that I played no role in terms of guiding where the council went. I asked each of the council members to think about it and identify for me who their top choices were, and so that all happened this weekend. Again, it's all it will be formalized via vote tomorrow morning, but I think that we will probably be able to come up with a decision that is unanimous amongst all of my colleagues.
Well, my understanding is it's already done deal. The vote is just put through.
Well, I mean, you know, as with a lot of our appointments, a lot of that conversation does happen. And again, to be sensitive to all of the people who have applied, we want to make sure that we follow the protocol. But it's no different from any of the other appointments that we do for any of the other positions, whether it be planning board or anything else. Right.
That person be voting on, will they be voting right away, or will they be voting on the speed and
Yes, to answer your question, yes, that person has full voting rights and can do everything that any of us as other council members that were elected instead of appointed do. That's part of the charter. That being said, I know that the District 5 council staff has been present and has been paying very close attention and taking great notes when it came to all of the 10 Mile Creek. I actually just met with Sonia not too long ago, the chief of staff, and since every applicant had already identified that they would be keeping on the current District 5 staff, that makes it a lot easier for us in terms of that transition. It's certainly going to be a lot of information right up front, but I'm confident that with the staff that this person will have, as well as you know, the ability of them, we wouldn't have picked somebody who didn't have the ability, we thought, to be able to learn quickly and get things done. And so from that perspective, I'll be sitting down with them as well. I know that Steve Farber will be sitting down with him. So there are a number of resources that this person will be able to go to make sure that they can get all of the information needed to make a well-informed decision on a number of the issues that will be facing us. Hold it.
Talked a little bit about the 10 Mile Creek earlier. I saw some of the meeting that you guys had before. Nancy Florine was asking staff, you know, do you see this as a roll of the dice if you guys move forward with the amendment? Staff wasn't extremely clear, but David Lake did say he would support a comprehensive study. Do you feel right now that if you guys move forward with it, it would be a roll of the dice?
I don't know. It's a little premature at this point. We've heard that before. I think that it's the first time we've heard it from executive staff as to that is a concern. We had originally heard some comments from former council members and others from the community, but to see that communication come directly from executive staff saying that this is something that we should take a look at, I'm certain is something that everybody took notes on. And so, you know, we'll be taking a look at this. I mean, one of my concerns as the district council representative for that area is that we've already had Clarksburg on hold for a long amount of time as it is. I don't want to just belabor the point just to belabor the point, but I think that based on what I heard today, there are some very valid concerns that are out there regarding whether or not we need to understand what the implications of total development on the Little Seneca Reservoir might be. And that's why I asked my question, because I'm equally concerned not only just about 10 Mile Creek development, but about the continued development that we see in Germantown that is going gangbusters right now. I mean, when you look at everything from Seneca Meadows that just was built with the Wegmans Shopping Center to the number of houses that continue to spring up in Germantown, it certainly is something that, look, if we need to start looking at things differently when it comes to our drinking water supply, and we haven't done that before, you know, maybe that's something that warrants us pausing and taking a look. But like I said, it's premature at this point to say that that's definitely where the council's headed. I'm not sure since it was just brought up, but it certainly is something that warrants us taking a look at.
Would you support moving ahead with like doing a comprehensive study?
It's still too early for me to say at this point. Like I said, again, my angst would be the delay for my Clarksburg residents. in really seeing some sort of finality come to this 1994 master plan, and for residents to really understand what their community is going to look like. So it would have to be something that would be very convincing for me to go that route.
Actually, I have a question.
Sure.
It's not for, it's a different topic.
Sure.
You guys passed, your minimum wage law before Thanksgiving. Governor O'Malley made his proposal. So I guess, just have you had a chance to look at it, and, what were your initial thoughts to this?
I have, and I think that, look, I've always advocated for and said from the very beginning that the state was going to raise the minimum wage. I still feel confident that they will. I always still felt as though the state should lead and we should go behind them and ratchet up on what the state's done. It would have made it easier for us and less expensive based on the dollar expense alone, just from dollar regulating versus us regulating that. But that being said, look, we're already there. We've done a great job in recognizing the working and poor families here in Montgomery County that are challenged every day to try and make a living. And so I hope that the state looks at the economic competitiveness angle and makes sure that Montgomery County is protected from that perspective. That's always been my concern, is that we would be so high and the state would be at a level that was, say, $1.50, $2 difference, which would create some economic competitiveness challenges, especially for areas of my district that bleed into Frederick, Nancy Navarro, who bleeds into Howard, and others. Those are the kinds of real concerns that we have when it comes to the economic competitiveness. But the bill itself, I think, is a great starting point. And so, we'll continue to see how that goes. I did want to comment that I've heard some rumblings about, and I'm not sure which paper it was reported in, so I apologize, but about the Six Flags amendment. And let me just say that that is concerning to us. We did make an exemption for an age group that was working a certain number of hours, but to start carving out employers, I think really flies in the face of the agreement that we had amongst all of us. If we started picking out some of our large #1 employers and saying, well, you're exempt and you're exempt, that really goes against the spirit of what we were trying to do to begin with, in terms of saying that everyone, as in all of our residents throughout this Washington metropolitan region, deserve to have a fair and equitable share, not just because you work for a big company that happens to hire people during the summer that, oh, now you're exempt. So that's concerning for myself, and I know that a couple of my colleagues have expressed their concern as well, so we'll be anxiously watching. I actually have a call in to Mel Franklin, who is the chair of the Prince George's County Council, so we can talk about this in further detail. Right.
There was a group that came out this morning.
Mm.
We had a chance to look at that.
Yeah, it's one of those where, and this is a really sensitive and tough issue for me, because when anyone alleges that any of our county departments is guided by a person who they've deemed a racist, someone who's insensitive, is troubling to me. I know Chief Lohr. I've had an opportunity to talk to him a number of times, and don't feel as though that's the case. While the particulars of the incident had been investigated, the county executive led that in making sure, again, another African-American man, who wanted to make sure that this was followed up and found no actionable items. My major concern is this, is that anytime there's an incident that happens that brings about something like this, we need to make sure it's addressed. We need to make sure that it's investigated to ensure that something like this doesn't have any kind of proof that's there that says that some kind of egregious or some sort of egregious action was taken or some sort of law was broken. That's certainly not what we want from any of our departments or any of our employees. And so that investigation was already undertaken, and no wrongdoing was found from that aspect. Again, I wasn't there. Only the people that were there that day truly know exactly what words were said and what happened. But I can tell you this, that to frame the entire fire department and to frame the leader of our fire department as one because of the alleged actions of a few individuals is not the right thing for us to do. If in fact those individuals did do something, then they of course should be held accountable. But again, without any proof, it's very difficult for us to just slap accusations on an individual or a department. Any other questions? All right. Well, guys, thank you very much. Again.